Welcome, and thank you for joining us for another live episode of Teachers for Teachers. That's you, moms and dads. I'm Dr. Dejana, and I'm here with Dr. Leah. Hello, Leah.
Hello, Dr. Dejana. It's so good to see you. I like the days when we can be in the same room, but this is pretty good. And also, we have an awesome panel, and one of our panelists is our special guest today, Anne McMullen. And Anne is going to talk to us about a national survey from Speak Up. And so, Anne, do you want to say hi?
Hi, just a thrill to be with you all again. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Great to see everyone.
Yeah, Dejana, do you want to introduce the rest of the panel?
Absolutely. And again, joining us, we're so happy to have them. It's Dr. Mark Riddle. Mark, hello. Go ahead and say hello. Hello.
Good to see you.
There he is. Mark has degrees in music theology and sociology and works at West Coast University. Happy to have him joining our panel. And hello, Tim Griffin. Go ahead and say hello.
Howdy, how y'all doing today?
Tim is a regular with us, and he's a retired STEM teacher, an award-winning singer, songwriter, and storyteller, and the founding director of Griffin Ed. You guys need to check out Griffin Ed. It's a nonprofit team of educators and musicians that are dedicated to raising academic achievement in STEM through music.
And it's very effective, I have to say. I have played all of Tim's music to my grandchildren whenever they're in the car with me, which is often. And it's really like, I want to be a mathematician or an engineer. I want to be an engineer and a mathematician like me. And I get the names confused, but the kids have got the education from it. And I think one of the goals there is to put K through 8 to music. And it's so much easier to remember a curriculum when it comes with a song.
So true. So true.
Yeah. So I think Anne is going to share some slides with us about some research, and really impressive research too, with the number. It was 6 million people have filled out their research questionnaires on education over the last few years. And now I think today's really looking at the difference between pre-COVID and post-COVID realities for educators.
Thank you, Leah. It's just a thrill to be able to share the information about the great work that Project Tomorrow is doing. Project Tomorrow is a nonprofit association based in Irvine, California. They've been around since 2003, and as you've said, they do a number of research projects, but probably the one that's most well known is their Speak Up annual national survey, which is done with school districts and private schools and charter schools, incorporating teachers, students, parents every year. Over many, many months, people have the opportunity to participate, and then they produce their findings. And in normal years, there is also a congressional briefing in Washington, D.C., and I've been privileged to be there when that happened. But of course, this year, the congressional briefing was virtual. But the plus side to that is that everybody can have an opportunity to view it. And the entire briefing is about 90 minutes long. And again, if you go to tomorrow.org, you can pull it up. But I want to give you some highlights from that briefing. So let's go ahead and get started. On the next slide, hopefully you're seeing some little bit of history about the Speak Up project. And again, it started in 2003. It's a suite of online surveys that is free for schools, charters, anyone to participate in, public, private schools, parochial. And then they can get their data, and they can also compare their data to their state, to the country, to see how things are going. Next slide, please. So when we look at this particular year, you can see that the data started in September of 2019 and was scheduled to run through June 30th of 2020. That's kind of the average span of the annual Speak Up survey every year. However, this year we had that fluky thing happen in March, and life became even more interesting. So looking at the data that Speak Up collected this year, they decided to look at it from two different perspectives, looking at it from before schools closed, so from September 2019 to March 16th of 2020, and then looking at the data during the school closures as they were getting more data back during that time from March to June 30th. And as you can see, it's 137,000 stakeholders who participated this year. And of those 137,000, nearly 111,000 were students. And I think it's so important to listen to student voices and understand that. but around 12,000 teachers and librarians, another 12,000 parents. And I know those are groups we're really focused in with our Teachers for Teachers. That's you, mom and dad. So I wanted to share that today. So let's start looking at what some of the data told us. So if we'll go to the next slide, you will see looking at the state of digital learning during the pandemic. And one of the areas that they shared was an increase in technology-enabled student-teacher communications. And if you look at the slide, you can see there's the percent of each group, the students, the teachers, the parents, and how they agreed with that statement. Students are communicating more with their teachers because of technology usage. Before the closures, you can see the percentages were running in the 30s, but I was really looking at after and during the school closures. You can see parents, particularly, there's a 20% uptick in their perception of how students are communicating with parents, so or with their teachers rather. So interesting data point there. On the next slide, I want to share with you a quote from a sixth grade girl in Maryland back in 2015. I don't think this young lady had any idea how premonition how she was when they asked the students then to think about back in 2015, what was school going to be like in 2020? Can you imagine that question back then? And her answer, let's take a look at this together. It says in 2020, there will be many more educational videos, online class discussions, online games, texting from teachers, or other ways for students and teachers to communicate online. And everyone will have their own tablet or laptop. That is what the school of the future looks like in my head, and everything will be online and everyone would learn more. I would love to pick up the phone and call that young girl and ask her what she thinks of her premonition now 5 years later and what 2020 evolved to be. But let's continue looking at some of the data points that they did collect this year. And one of the things that Project Tomorrow saw in their Speak Up research was the evolving teacher and parent beliefs and values of digital learning based upon their experiences in the spring of 2020. And as you know, Leah, I work with superintendents across the US, and there is no question that we have had struggles and that the springtime was especially tough because we went from a Friday to a Monday. But I have a good friend who always says, you know, don't let a good crisis go to waste. And I think we are learning in this process. And I think we're going to never go back to the way school was before, but it will be a different look. And these are just some of the data pieces that came out of that. That technology is beginning to be looked at as more of a learning platform, not just a tool for student engagement. And as you see, virtual classrooms are a digital learning lab for both teachers and students to experiment with new resources and new learning models. And that teachers are becoming better informed about what constitutes quality in digital content. Just don't grab it because it's free. You know, what do we use? And what types of products do they really need and want in their classroom? The professional development side of all of this, and Dejana can speak to that as well, has been critical and will continue to be. From the parent perspective, we see that they're doubling down on the value of technology to create education that is more personalized, more individualized learning experiences for their own children. And finally, that digital tools provide added value to parents because they can have increased communication and transparency about their students' progress and what they're doing. Let's take a look at the next slide, please, because when we look at the teacher side of this, and I think if we had asked this question at the end of March, it might have been a very different than what we're seeing from the responses they're getting now. But you can see on this slide, there is beginning to be an increase in teacher appreciation for online learning. In fact, 53% of teachers now say that online classes should be part of the ultimate school experience. That was 39% before school closures back in March. So there's a difference there. And in our next slide, we get some look at some historical references to the parent view on that, the increase that we are seeing in the parents' concepts on the benefits of technology use within learning. And that slide you can see goes back to actually the 2018-2019 school year, when the parents' perception around how their child communicates with their teachers, the child's ability to learn at their own pace, the child developing enhanced creativity skills, or the child learning in a way that best fits their own needs. 2018-19, that was kind of all in the 30%. Now, as we're looking, especially during the time that the schools have been closed, you can see it's up to the 40s and 50%. So an increase in the perception there of how the technology is benefiting the students from the parent perspective. In fact, as you will see on the next slide, which has some great shots of an at-home school going on. I know, Leah, that may be very familiar to you, that type of picture, and Dejana as well. You can see that the Speak Up data saw that 75% of parents now say that the effective use of technology in school is really very important for their child's future success. And that stood at 55% this year before the schools closed. But again, with the respondents after school closure, up to 75%. And on our next slide, just to give you an overview of where some of our challenges are still showing up as we look at the emerging education transformation. Parents, during school closures, there was an increase in that first bullet point of technology being used effectively by my child's teacher to support learning. But where we still now begin to see some challenges materializing in bigger ways than they had in the past is a parent saying, I'm very comfortable helping my child with digital homework. Before the school closures, 68% this year said, yeah, they were. But by golly, after those schools closed, and it really became, the role of the parent changed really to being, as we all know in this whole broadcast that you do, Leah, really the parents are a co-teacher or a learning facilitator now. So that percentage dropped a little bit on how comfortable they are doing that. And I have to give many school districts and individual schools and actually ed tech companies credit, because they're beginning to realize this. And in addition to the emphasis on teacher professional development, assisting parents with this process is one that a lot of people are taking to heart. So it's not something we were doing in the past, but something that people are recognizing now. And the other area is this whole area of digital citizenship skills. What is good digital citizenship? And in that area, parents thought they knew before, but they're learning now that they really don't. And so that's an area that we're looking at and looking to help parents with their competence and their skill set in working with their own children at home on those digital citizenship skills. And on the next slide, it's interesting to see what students are saying about the kinds of tools that they want to use outside of school to support themselves in their own self-directed learning. And again, I think to any educator on here, whether it's Tim, Dejana, anybody watching, most of this is not going to be a big surprise to them who have worked with students in a digital environment. The fact that students like to watch videos to learn how to do something, you know, that YouTube is the go-to place to figure something out. 72% of students said that's what they like. And then social media is growing in importance with our students. I thought this next bullet point, using voice-enabled assistant to support self-learning. So it isn't just staring at a screen, but it's being able to see and hear as well is helpful in their learning. And then no surprise here, and Leah, you've done a whole broadcast on this, the idea of digital games to develop skills. And even watching others play games. So the whole esports arena that is taking off now, you know, is a way that students are learning. On the next slide, we will see, no surprise, 50% of the students in grades 6 through 12 really wish their teachers would use more social media. In fact, we won't see it today, but if you look at the video of the interview with the students, one of the students said, and this is a high school senior, she's really struggling with email because her teacher uses email all the time. And she wishes that the teacher would use Instagram or Snapchat or something, you know. So that's a wish for that came through in the data from Speak Up. I would just like to say to any educators on watching the broadcast, if you are interested in participating in Speak Up in the 2020-2021, registration is opening up now, and it will run November 9th through May 28th of 2021. It's free to participate. Check out speakup.tomorrow.org if that's something you want to do, or if you want to reach out to Leah, she can reach me and I'll be happy to connect anybody with that information. I would like to close now with just a short video clip from that congressional briefing that took place back at the end of October, just a few weeks ago, and share a video. You will see that's Julie Evans on the top left of the screen that you see there is the CEO of Project Tomorrow. And with her congressional briefing, she always interviews a panel of students. And to the immediate right of Julie is Christina Fleming, who is from Blackboard, that is one of the sponsors. And then the students that you see, that is Sarah, who is an 8th grade student from Alabama. And then across the bottom, we have Kellen, who is an 11th grade student from San Marcos Unified School District in Southern California. And Hikari, who is a 7th grade student in Virginia. And on the bottom right is Olivia, a 12th grade student from El Paso. And in this little clip, it's just a 3-minute clip I'm going to share with you, you will hear Julie talking to the students, asking for their view of what they think education should look like in the future. So whenever they're ready to run that video, we can go with that. And again, the address is there.
If you could design the ultimate school, what type of learning experiences would you like to see as part of your daily school activities? Olivia.
Do we not have sound on the video?
I think that it's important to teach real life skills to our students. And this is me thinking, you know, after COVID, after, you know, all of this, everything's back to normal, you know, fingers crossed. I think ideally we need to incorporate more of those real life skills, such as, you know, learning how to do taxes, car maintenance. I don't know how to cook that well still, and I'm going to be 18 soon, and that's really scary. So, you know, things like that I think are really important. And, you know, maybe we can use technology to help inform and educate our students on things like that. That's something that's really important to me. But also I think real life experiences. I do think that we push students to decide their careers and futures a little too soon. Just me personally speaking, but you know, I think it's okay. I think it's okay to think and to start thinking. Maybe not, you know, formulate your decision that'll last, you know, forever and ever. But let's say I want to be a lawyer. So I go to a school and they provide me an opportunity to shadow an actual attorney. And then I realize, you know what, this is kind of stressful. I don't think I can do this. I saved my parents a lot of money. And, you know, now I know that's something that I'm not passionate about and I can move on to something else. I think that would be, you know, really, really beneficial.
Thank you so much. I think that you're speaking obviously from the perspective of someone who is going to be graduating from high school this year. And so I can see where these things are like top of mind for you in terms of whether you're prepared or not. So thank you, Olivia. Kellen, did I see your hand go up?
Yeah. First, I was going to say that I think it's, again, really important to have a variety of different tools and platforms that we use to learn, not staying on one platform, staying on like Google Classroom, but also using like the Jamboard, but also like Pear Deck and Nearpod, and using those various platforms to keep students engaged. Additionally, I would love to see in a perfect world to have more discussions with our teachers and classmates regarding the issues that are going on in our world right now. I think teaching the importance of having civil disagreements is super important, and learning how to have disagreements with someone else and like sharing your opinions and your ideas in a classroom setting is super important. Last year, for the first time, I had a Black teacher. So I had someone that looked like me, and we had discussions that were so impactful on every student, no matter the color of their skin. And it was so impactful for me and every student to see that it's okay to be friends with someone who has different opinions than you. And we were taught how to have those discussions respectfully. So I think that could be something that we could also try to impact and bring into our campuses.
Kellen, that is so fascinating in terms of, you're absolutely right. We may
Wow, that was impressive. Both, there's so much to unpack here. There's so much information in that program, and I didn't know anything about Speak Up before this, so I'm really happy to be introduced to it. This is back to, and I've said this so many times over the last few months, is like indicative of opportunities for us to keep parents engaged in their students' education. And I'm very excited about what the findings say about that possibility.
Yeah, I agree with you, Leah. I think for too long we have separated home and school, you know, and bringing, though as stressful as it's been, and it's been hard, I do think there are some real positives to come out of this. And the notion of being able to personalize learning, that we're not just delivering anymore a one size fits all, which all of us knew that wasn't working for everybody, but now we can really address those differences and have those communications. And then the reality is that the technology piece is just a part of life today. And if we're going to make learning relevant for students, we've got to incorporate it. And this pandemic kind of forced us to do that, whether we wanted to or not.
Indeed it did, and we did need it. So this is wonderful. Mark, I see you.
Oh, just doing my normal cogitating over here. I was remembering back, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when there were, large scale discussions about whether sex ed should be taught in schools, for example. And, there are plenty of folks who thought it shouldn't be, plenty of folks who did, but the net result was that nobody was teaching any kids anything about their bodies or, anything else. And it makes me wonder if maybe some of this co-teaching that parents are doing these days can inspire the kind of confidence to have tough discussions with their kids about topics like that we've kind of gave to the schools for at least a little while. And like Ann said, kind of reclaim that, let the parents and the schools, do the things that need to happen. I think, parents are really well suited to teach good digital citizenship, for example. That's something that, the family values could prevail, as opposed to, school saying, you do it this way kind of stuff. So I think there are a lot of opportunities opened up here to involve parents in meaningful ways with their kids' education.
So true. And Dejana, I see you just unmuted yourself.
Well, just some things that I'm reflecting on is I love that this survey gave us the opportunity to take a screen grab of a position before COVID-19 when it came to a lot of aspects on how we use technology in education, and then to fast forward and take another screen grab of what it looks like now. And it's opened up a lot of reflection for me as a teacher. On how we can really take this pause and this growth in technological tools to really do something special for these kids, for these students, and to really, yes, we've been looking at education. How can we do it better? Maybe the system doesn't currently meet the needs of what the 21st century skills are going to be. But now we can really, really address that in a meaningful way. And I love that this particular project took student voices, right? Us grownups, we talk and we plan and we make all of these ideas, we come up with all of these ideas, but I love that we got to hear from the students and figure out what was important to them and how they're feeling impacted by what we're doing. And so this data, I'm so glad we're broadcasting it here, because I think educators everywhere need to hear this message that this is an opportunity for us to maximize the potential of using educational technology to really meet the needs of individual students.
Right. And on that topic of hearing from the students, what a visionary that young woman was in 2015 who wrote about what school would be like in 2020. I mean, that was really shocking that I mean, I think kids do see things coming, especially in the technology world, faster than we might. But that was really wonderful. Tim,
Yeah, Donna, I appreciate your point about listening to the students. And I think we need to do much more of that. Even a simple, how's this working for you? You know, is this working for you? You know, so yeah, and Speak Up has been interviewing students, like we said, going back to 2003. So yeah, that student voice is critical, and the voices on the video are just so impactful and powerful. And I know Tim sees that in his work with students all the time as well.
And technology has now caught up with our desire to have individualized learning, right? We have 10 years ago, it would still have been such a heavy lift on the teacher to try and have individualized learning. Now what we need are the game design companies, the software companies to get some sort of tax break for offering educational programming. And we could know what their triggers are, what really gets them interested, where are they going down the rabbit hole, and help build a curriculum around those ideas for them. It's actually part of what we have presented for our Equality Can't Wait challenge, isn't it? That we could individualize and gamify the education. So we're trying to move in that direction. Yeah, I'd love to be able to find that young woman from 2015 and
we'll do some looking. We'll see what we can do.
We'd like to interview her. So
I appreciate it. And on behalf of Julie Evans and all the folks at Project Tomorrow, thank you for letting us share that. They're really doing great work and have been for many, many, many years. When I worked in a school district in Texas, we were part of that Speak Up, and that data meant a lot to me as a district administrator to figure out what we were doing and where we were going.
Yeah, it's very helpful. And really, you know, we started the junior board in our organization in order to try and bring the kids' voices to the table. So I hear what you're saying. I'm so glad that you shared that with us. And yeah. I actually think we just kind of ran out of time too. So Dejana, you want to take us home?
Oh, I'm telling you, I'm leaving with a much better appreciation for Speak Up and that survey. Like, that's just, I love hearing the voices, from the voices of children, from the voices of educators, from the voices of mom and dad. That's it for today. I'm Dr. Dejana, again here with Dr. Leah, and please join us next time.